Happy Friday and welcome to the Big Me Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. It is Friday, the day before the Michigan State game, and we have Big Ten football tonight, sort of. We'll get to that in a second. We'll go through the rest of the Big Ten and give you some oddities in this Ohio State and Michigan State series. Right off the bat, though, let's take care of a little bit of business. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to hit the subscribe button, hit that bell, and make sure you don't miss a single thing.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, well, the world may not blow up, but it would mean a lot to me. And I want to make sure that everybody checks out Buckeye Huddle. Check out Buckeye Huddle, please. It is where I work. It's where Tom and Tony work. Fantastic combination of experts in terms of recruiting, writing, everything else. Great community. Don't miss out. But, let's kind of get to it right now. We have Big Ten football tonight. Nebraska and Rutgers playing on a Friday night delight. One of, I think, 4 games on the night. Nebraska, 3-point road favorite. So, Rutgers kind of got it handed to them against Ohio State, and now they get to go home. They're having a blackout, and Nebraska comes in, sans a head coach at this point. Nothing against Mickey Joseph, and he may end up getting the job, but they don't have a permanent head coach, and they're a 3-point road favorite. So there you go. Also in the Big Ten, we got Michigan at Indiana. Michigan a 22.5-point favorite. Purdue is at Maryland. Maryland is a 3-point favorite. We have Wisconsin and Northwestern. Wisconsin without a coach. Recently fired Paul Chryst, a 10-point favorite. And Iowa at Illinois. Illinois, a 3.5-point home favorite. And then, of course, you have Ohio State and Michigan State. And Ohio State is somewhere in the neighborhood of a 26 to 27-point favorite, depending on when and which book you look at. So, one way or the other, we are talking about a team in Ohio State that is more than a 3-score favorite in this one, saying that 3 full scores could be 8. 8 times 3 is 24. We're north of that. Needless to say, they're saying that Ohio State is going to run away with this one. We'll see. We'll see. I'm picking Ohio State, and we will have our staff predictions here on BuckeyeHuddle.com here later in the day, so you'll have to go check it out over there. It's a free story. We do have a lot of free content on the front page, but we do want you to become members to join that community and also get some of our insider-only content, including Ross Fulton's X's and O's series, My Tale of the Tape, a couple other ones. But, in this series, Ohio State leads 35-15. These teams have been played 50 times going into this one. Because let's not forget, Michigan State was not always a member of the Big Ten. Not that Ohio State was at first either, but Michigan State did not come in until 51, if I'm right. 1951, did not start competing in football until 1953. So not as much time, and you always have the years where things didn't happen. There weren't crossovers and everything else because, if you go from 53 and you go 50 years, that does not add up to 2022. So obviously there were some games that weren't played. A couple of strange anomalies, though. Ohio State has owned Michigan State in East Lansing, 18-5. That's right, 1-8-5. Ohio State has not lost in East Lansing since 1999, which in fact was the last time that Ohio State lost 2 in a row to Michigan State, 98 and 99. We are not going to get into that 98 game. I promise you, I do not want to lose any fans or turn off anybody from subscribing by talking about that game. All sorts of bad memories in that one. Ohio State, a much more 16-10 in Columbus. So Ohio State's only +6 in Columbus. And then, of course, there was the one neutral site game in Indianapolis, Big Ten championship game. Michigan State won that one. But we won't get into that one either. Let's just throw it back to 1975. Why? Because I felt like it. Ohio State's 28-7 all time against Michigan State since then. So, once again, we're talking about a series that there was a 6-game window in the 2000s where they played every year, and the games were oh so close and oh so competitive and oh so frustrating. Ohio State winning 3 in East Lansing, Michigan State winning 2 in Columbus and 1 in Indianapolis. But I went in and there wasn't a great way to plug this into a spreadsheet. Maybe I'm just not really good at using Outlook. I don't know. So I hand typed 50 years worth of stats into Outlook. your overall average score from this game historically, going all the way back until 19 3 or whenever they started, and only Simpsons fans will understand that reference, but like 1913, I think, was like the first game in this series. Ohio State has won the game 30-16. Now, remind you, that includes games that Ohio State lost. So there are going to be games in there where Michigan State's going to make up points. But Ohio State, through the history of this series, 50 games has won by 14 points is your average score. And something to remember too is that Ohio State started this series against Michigan State 0-3, and that got me to looking because we know about that other school from that state, and that if it wasn't for the first 15 years where Ohio State went something like 0-13-2, that Ohio State would be leading that series. So I'm like, how many Big Ten teams, current Big Ten teams, is Ohio State kind of trailing in terms of that? And now, mind you, not everybody that I looked at were Big Ten members at the time. Rutgers and Maryland, obviously, that doesn't matter. Ohio State's 0-9 again, or 9-0 against Rutgers and 7-0 against Maryland. Neither of those matter. But in the cases of Penn State, Nebraska, I looked at those, and 7 of the 13 other Big Ten teams had at least 2-game winning streaks against Ohio State to start the series. So I wonder what was going on in the 1900s and the 1910s and the 1920s when a lot of these series started, because Ohio State surely didn't beat these guys. But what does that mean for 2022? What does that mean for tomorrow? Nothing, not a damn thing. But it does, it's still interesting to look at. And the thing is that we can sit there and we can piece apart these games all we want. We can sit there and say, well, Peyton Thorne does this versus, so-and-so, and we're going to talk about Peyton Thorne in a second, and everything else. And that's fine. And that probably has a little bit more bearing. But, you got to remember, these series have been going on for more than 100 years. I mean, certainly this one, because as I said, it started no later than 1913. All the numbers started to run together after a while. So I don't remember off the top of my head. But with that being said, it's more than 100 years. And it's kind of hard to think, because you could sit there and just going back to the Jim Tressel era feels like 11,000 years ago. And that wasn't all that long ago. I mean, you sit there and you had the years of Urban, and then, you go into Ryan Day. And then, before Urban, you had the 1 year of Luke Fickell. 2010, that's a dozen years ago. That's 12 years ago to the end of the Jim Tressel era. That's a long time. I mean, honestly, there are a lot of kids out there that are high school juniors right now that don't remember Jim Tressel as the Ohio State head coach. I mean, they're probably aware. I mean, those that care, certainly those in Ohio that follow Ohio State. But there are a lot of 15 and 16-year-old kids out there that 12 years ago were 3, 4. I mean, yeah, I have some memories of playing in the sandbox when I was 4. But I certainly don't remember anything about, as my Outlook goes off, I don't remember anything about what was going on with my favorite sports teams. I mean, my first sports memory probably was 1977 when I was 6. So, just a way of saying that college football, the eras pass very quickly, and you lose track of how long ago something was. I mean, I was a student during the John Cooper era. There's just a lot of things going on. I mean, and I get to see John Cooper every week at the Ryan Day press conference. I've said hi to him a couple times or whatever. I know that there were times I asked him about Michigan. He didn't like that. He didn't like it when anybody asked about Michigan. But John Cooper's a great guy. I mean, I just can't say enough about him. He's a great guy. I know a lot of fans were ready to see his tenure end. When I was in the fan boat instead of the reporter boat, I had my frustrations too, but I digress. He handled Michigan State. It was Michigan that he couldn't handle. What do I know about the Spartans this year? Well, they still can't play defense. No Xavier Henderson, no Jacob Slade. Slade's out for the year. I think Henderson's probably going to be out for the year. I don't know for sure. I haven't talked to anybody on the ground in East Lansing to get particulars on that one, but it sure sounds like that's going to be the case. And Xavier Henderson is in a position of need, and that's just called secondary, because Michigan had the 130th secondary in the nation, pass defense, out of 130 teams last year. Ohio State comes out. CJ Stroud throws 6 first-half touchdowns to tie his school record with 6, but nobody had done it in a half. Michigan State secondary really isn't that much better. They've gone to the transfer portal as you would expect. I don't know if it's really any better when you have Tanner Morgan throwing for 89%. You have Talia Tungavaloa looking like a Heisman quarterback winner, throwing somewhere in that range. Sorry, as I kick my table, if CJ Stroud comes out and even brings a B game out there, he's going to throw for 80%. I just don't see a way. And Michigan State has a grand total of 0 interceptions on the year. Now they've forced 9 fumbles and recovered 7 of them, so they're ripping at the ball. But I also think that a great number of those happened against Western Michigan and who's their other non-con game? Akron. I don't even know. It was somebody that's not really, certainly not a Power 5 team. And then they played Washington and they got spanked. And they've obviously played Minnesota and got spanked, and played Maryland and got spanked. So that's an issue. Peyton Thorne on the other side is a quarterback, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He has, one of his big receivers back from last year, but not both of them. Neither of them really. One was out for the game last year, and the other one played for about half a second, and the game was 21-0. And it's like, we're not going to play. We're not going to play some of our starters because they're already banged up. So if Peyton Thorne isn't necessarily getting it done, and people certainly remember what Peyton Thorne has been capable of doing. Peyton Thorne looked pretty good at times last year. People were saying, well, Peyton Thorne is a dark horse for winning Big Ten Quarterback of the Year in 2021. Well, that Peyton Thorne has not walked in the door for 2022 at this point. And that's not saying that Peyton Thorne is not a good quarterback or whatever, but he hasn't been good this year. And, there's a big difference between people get on social media and say, oh, this kid sucks or whatever, versus he's not playing well. He's not playing well, is fine. That's fair. I mean, they're big boys. They can handle that. Now a lot of them are getting paid with NIL. That was always a huge dividing line for me. Well, they're just amateurs. You can't be critical of them. But I still am not going to go out there and say 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, 22, maybe, 28 if you're Jesse Mirko. I'm not going to sit there and use derogatory statements like that. I mean, people are going to do it on social, and the worst place to be on social media after a game is to be on social media after a game, especially Twitter if your team loses, because it's just Ohio State gives up a first down and there are people calling for Jim Knowles' head, and it's just unbelievable. And some of them I think are doing it just to be ironic. And then there's some people who are doing it and they're a different kind of onic. Sorry. Not sorry. So Michigan State really made its bones last year by running the ball. Kenneth Walker III, he's not there anymore. So they go to the portal. They get Jalen Berger from Wisconsin, Jarek Broussard from Colorado. Neither of them have been Kenneth Walker III. Both of them combined have not been Kenneth Walker III. Wisconsin or Michigan State's been running for something like 60, 65 yards per game in Big Ten play or Power 5 play. Berger's been a little further ahead than Broussard. I think Berger's about 5.1 yards per carry. Broussard is 4.7. And you're like, well, 5 yards, that's, not horrible. That's not, 3 yards or whatever. But they're not getting anything done. Their offense is slow. Their defense is not getting it done. I don't like Michigan State's chances in this one at all. And there are people who are like, well, do you think Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to play? No, I don't. I don't see enough upside. I do see some upside in it. And the upside is that it gives him a chance to get out there and test it and then have a week with the open week to see how he feels, to rehab, et cetera, so he's not getting into the proverbial second half of the season with very limited action. The downside is that he needs another week of rest. He gets out there, he retweaks something, and they lose him for the rest of the year, or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. So I wouldn't play him. Trevion Henderson, I expect to see him play. Denzel Burke played last week. I expect to see him back. Cam Brown, probably back. Jordan Hancock is probably a couple weeks away, maybe after the open week. Cam Babb, not expecting him at this point. I think we've kind of hit some of the major ones at this point. Tanner McAllister, I would expect to see him play. You ended up having to insert Kai Stokes in the in the Rutgers game, and that was fine. I mean, he did okay. I mean, he did better than okay. I mean, that's just a big stage to get thrust on. But fortunately, Rutgers had no interest in running quick offense or throwing the ball, and they really didn't go after him. I don't think Michigan State. I think Michigan State is a better passing team than Rutgers, but I don't know if they're. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to come out and be 17 of 24 throwing the ball. I mean, I could see them come out and just as easily be 7 of 24. Are players getting frustrated with the fact that they come out 2-0 and now they're 2-3 and they're one of the coldest teams in the league? I don't know. I mean, they're going to get up for playing Ohio State, but if Ohio State comes out and punches them in the mouth, what does that mean? What does that mean at that point? So I don't know. But, just a quick show here for us. As I said, I wanted to just get something out here on Friday, but, be sure to join us on Buckeye Huddle. I'm going to guess that we'll be live later tonight from Michigan. So keep an eye out on that. That is why you have to hit that bell if you're watching us on YouTube. I'm going to give you one more chance. You have to hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode that we put out on any of our channels. Do it as if the fate of the earth depends on it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sorry, I'm just having fun with a new toy here that, sound effects pad. But, be sure to check out BuckeyeHuddle.com. Just had another great regular here on the site on YouTube that watches us regularly, signed up, and he's like, Kevin, I'm convinced I'm going to go check you guys out. I'm really excited. Signed up for an annual. You can be the next one. And we're dropping new gear, Buckeye Huddle logo gear. I'll start wearing some at that point. I'm looking forward to getting maybe a quarter zip, some things like that. But you can check out all of that as well. But, until then, have a safe and happy and healthy weekend. And we'll talk to you very soon.